So we're going to work on the second part of the 1-1 notes. It says 1-1 areas of triangles. Last class we did areas of parallelograms. So we're going to start with our orange formula sheet. We already have parallelogram formula, but now we're going to add the triangle formula. So instead of it just being base times height, it's going to be 1/2 base times height. So make sure you write that down. 1/2 base times height. Okay, so similar to the parallelograms, I'm going to do some highlighting here. I'm going to highlight all my bases in pink. See that there? I'm going to highlight all of my heights in blue. I'll make it a little bit easier when we go through this. Okay, so if I look over, you guys have that? If I look over at the example here, they give me 2 bases. And even on this example down here is my base. And then my height is perpendicular to that base, similar to what we had when we did parallelograms. Okay. So let's take a look at our first problem. Even though this problem is kind of upside down, that right angle there is going to identify my base and my height. So this 19 inches, even though it's on the top, is going to be my base. I'm going to label it B for base. And this 30 on the outside is going to be my height. If you remember from your orange sheet, the height can be inside or outside. But this 27 inches is not part of my triangle. So I'm going to completely disregard that. So for my formula for area, it's 1/2 base times height. I have my base, I have my height. But this problem also asks to find the perimeter. So I have 19, I have 41, but I do not have this side right here of my shaded triangle. So we're going to do very similar to what we did with parallelograms, is we're going to have to use Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to kind of ignore this and just look at that as that white triangle there. That's really why they give me that 27. And I'm going to do Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to do 27 squared plus 30 squared equals c squared. Zoom out so you guys can see that. Because remember, c has to be across from the 90. That has to be my hypotenuse. So 27 squared is 729. 30 squared is 900. I'm going to add these two numbers up. I get 1,629. I'm going to take the square root of that in my calculator, second with a little x2, and I get 40.4 is my C. So now you can see that I have all of the information I need to find both the perimeter and the area. Let's start with perimeter. So since it's the shaded figure, I'm doing these 3 sides around it. So my perimeter is going to be 41 plus 40.4 plus 19. If I add those all up, I get 100.4 inches. Remember, perimeter is just whatever our units are area is units squared. So now my area is 1/2 my base, which is 19, my height, which is 30. So you can take 1/2 of say 30 and just do 19 times 15, since that's my even number. I can multiply 19 times 30 and take half of that, or I can just plug it right into a calculator as I see it. So I will have 285 inches squared. Okay. All right, so let's move over to the next one. So again, I'm going to identify my base. My base is this 29. My height, which I see here, I don't know. So I'm going to have to do some solving in order to find out what that height is. So first thing I'm going to do is, again, the Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to look again at this white triangle because those are the two sides that I have. But keep in mind, I'm not finding C. C is going to be 13. That's my hypotenuse. So I'm going to just call it H because it's my height. H squared plus 6 squared equals 13 squared. Zoom in here a little. 6 squared is 36, 13 squared is 169. We're going to take this 36 and subtract it on both sides. And I get 133. And the square root of 133 is about 11.5. So my height is 11.5. So unfortunately with this one, we're still missing a side. I now can find my area. I have my base and my height, but I cannot find my perimeter. I don't know what that side is. So again, we're going to do another round of the Pythagorean theorem, except now I'm going to ignore this white triangle and I'm just going to look at this one right here that's shaded gray. So I'm finding my hypotenuse. Now I'm finding C again. So it's 11.5 squared plus 29 squared equals C squared. 11.5 squared is 132.25. (29) squared is 841 equals C squared. I'm going to add those two up. I get 973.25 equals C squared. And the square root of that is 31.2. So my hypotenuse is 31.2. So again, this is all the background work we have to do in order to get ready to solve the problem. So I'll give you a moment to get that down. So now we want to find the perimeter. Remember, we're finding the perimeter of the shaded figure. So that's this 31.2 plus 29 plus 11.5. Sorry, I ran out of room a little bit there. Add those all up, we get 71.7 centimeters. To find our area, it's 1/2 my base is 29 times my height. My height is 11.5. Plug that into my calculator and I get 166.75 centimeters squared. The biggest error I think I see is people forgetting that 1/2 when they go from parallelograms to triangles. So make sure you remember your formulas. You get to use that orange sheet. Let me give you a minute to write that down. All right, so sliding over to number 3. My base is 5. Remember, this 15 does not count as part of the base. My height is 8. So again, I have all the information for area, but I don't have this one side for perimeter. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this white triangle outside here. That's not really the triangle I'm talking about, but we're going to use that information to find that missing hypotenuse. So I'm going to do 8 squared plus 15 squared equals c squared. We have 64 plus 225 equals c squared. 289 equals c squared, and the square root of that is 17. So remember, I'm doing the perimeter of the shaded part. So I'm going to do 21.5 plus 17 plus 5. I will get 43.5 inches is my units. And my area is 1/2. My base is 5. My height is 8. 5 times 8 is 40. Half of 40 is 20. All right, moving over to the next one. Again, I'm going to identify my base. 30 is my base, but again, similar to number 2 above it, I do not know what my height is. So I'm going to have to do Pythagorean theorem to find that height. It's actually very similar to this problem up here. We have that hypotenuse, we have this hypotenuse, but we're missing the side. So if you want to take a look at how we did that one, we're going to do h squared plus 12 squared equals 20 squared. 12 squared is 144. 20 squared is 400. We're going to subtract that 144 over here. We get 256, and the square root of that is 16. So 16 is my height. But again, like the one above it, we still have to do another round of the Pythagorean theorem to find this hypotenuse for perimeter. So I'm going to do 16 squared plus 30 squared equals c squared. 256 plus 900 equals c squared. You add those up. Take the square root. And we get 34. So after this, it all gets easy. My perimeter will be 34 plus 30 plus 16. Which is 80. My area is 1/2 my base times my height. Which is 240. And we are all done with that problem. So what I would suggest is stopping the video and trying the last two on your own and then replaying the video to check. If you still need more practice, I'll keep going with you so you can keep following along. But I would suggest trying some on your own. So we're going to do 2 more on the back. All right, so again, my base is on the bottom here. It's 30. And my height, I do not know. In order to find my height, I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem. H squared plus 5 squared equals 10 squared. It's really important. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you guys couldn't see that. It's really important to remember that 10 is across from the 90. That's my hypotenuse. This is another problem where we're going to have to do the Pythagorean theorem twice to find this hypotenuse. Squared. I hope you're trying these on your own. So now that I have all 3 sides of my shaded figure, I'm going to add them up. 31.2 plus 30 plus 8.7. My area is 1/2 my base times my height. And there's my problem. All right, last one like this. Again, my base, my height. If you're catching on, whenever they give you both your base and your height, typically you only have to do the Pythagorean theorem one time. It's when we're missing the height that we've had to do it twice. So this will be a one-time Pythagorean theorem. You should be good at that by now. So we're going to do our Pythagorean theorem to find this right here. Try this Pythagorean theorem on your own. It's 34, so again I'm going to add all three sides. 35 plus 34 plus 11, and I get 80. My area is 1/2 my base times my height. Which is 137.5. So we're all done with these problems. We're going to move to the bottom now. So the bottom problems, I give you the area, I give you the base, but I do not tell you what the height is. We did similar problems when we did parallelograms, so you could take a look back at those notes too. So my formula is area equals 1/2 base times height. I tell you what my area is. I tell you my base, but I do not tell you what the height is. So if you remember from earlier in the notes, I said that you could take half of one of the numbers. You don't have to take half of both of them. So half of 34 is 17. To get x alone, I'm going to divide both sides by 17. And I get 21 equals x. And if you really wanted to, you could plug that back in, take half of 34 times 21, and make sure that you get the area that is given. The next one's a little tricky. The whole base is not 41. The whole base is right here. So we need to kind of do some critical thinking. If the whole thing is 41 and this little piece is 11, 41 minus 11 is 30. And my height is unknown. So again, I like to write it out. Area equals 1/2 base times height. My area is 165. My base is 30. My height is x. Half of 30 is 15. Divide both sides by 15. And 11 is our x, that is our height. Okay, we're all done.